Did the Air Jordan 37 get better or worse than the Air Jordan 36? Let's check it out. Welcome back to our channel. Today we're going to be breaking down the performance side for the most recent shoes to come out of Michael Jordan's signature line. But before I do that, I'll just take a quick second to knock out some of the basic info first. So the Air Jordan 36 is going to retail for $185. That does put these on the more expensive side of the scale, but I mean, at least there's no price jump to deal with. And the Air Jordan 37 did keep the same exact $185 retail price. So taking a quick look at these models, I mean, I'll start off with the Jordan 36, quite simply because I just like them more. Like, this is the 34th year in a row where Jordan Brand has been using that Eclipse plate, which is just going to be that see-through portion at the bottom of the shoe. I think that's a really cool touch, at least for, like, you know, just the optics, kind of looking at these. And then this colorway honestly has a really busy upper, but I like the red line that kind of runs along and along the midsole, kind of outlining that. Then on the tongue, you're going to see a Jumpman logo with on sort of this like patch that covers up the lacing system. Then around the heel is going to be another little patch that has some 36 text on there. You got some Nike Air, another Jumpman logo, but honestly, this is just a really clean shoe. A little bit more so than the Air Jordan 37 this year, in my opinion. I mean, they just kind of look like a boot to me. And I thought that initially whenever the photos came out, and then getting them in hand and even seeing them on foot, my opinion hasn't really changed a ton. So clearly they did ditch the Eclipse plate and kind of traded it in for some type of like translucent design on the midsole. And speaking of translucent, the upper is actually see-through on these. So like there's different patches just along this model where you can actually see your sock through the model. And like, to be totally honest, I kind of hate that feature, just in like general, like especially on basketball shoes though, because then it almost matters what socks you're wearing. Like, for example, the Nike socks that have that dry fit text on the toe, like you're gonna be able to see that through this shoe. I don't know, like I didn't really used to care this much about that see-through stuff. It didn't bother me. Obviously, it seems like it's starting to bother me a little bit more now, but I mean, just to touch on a few more spots on this model, Michael Jordan's signature does show up on the heel. Then on the tongue, it's actually going to kind of flare out and reminds me a little bit of the Zion 1. It's like kind of has the same look. And I almost forgot to mention this. The Air Jordan 37 is actually supposed to have, like, you know, the same exoskeleton from the Air Jordan 7 20 years ago. So I can honestly see that a little bit. I mean, and that's kind of a cool feature, not bad, but I mean, that's going to cover it for the appearance on these shoes. Now let's go ahead and take a closer look at how they hold up on the court. So now checking out more of the materials and the performance side, and starting off with the cushioning. Before I talk about how they actually feel on the court, I'll kind of give you the cut and dry cushioning layout for each shoe first. So for the Air Jordan 36, these are going to get a full-length Air Zoom Strobel unit that is going to be stitched directly to the upper to minimize weight. Then along with that is going to be an additional Zoom Air unit in the forefoot to add an extra burst of responsiveness. Then as for the Air Jordan 37, these are going to have a double-stacked Air unit in the forefoot that gives you nice energy returning responsiveness, letting you stop and start on a dime. Then you're also going to have some Formula 23, which is Jordan's signature foam, and that's going to be stacked thick in the heel so you can come down as hard as necessary without aftershocks and then be able to bounce right back. And staying with the Jordan 37 now, like that double stacked Air unit in the forefoot feels way more than double stacked. Like there's just a noticeable rise in the forefoot, like from the second that you put these on, it just feels elevated up there. And I've definitely started to prefer that setup. I mean, I know the Zion 2, it does feel a little bit more top heavy this year, and you can feel it a lot more in this 37 model, but comparing it to playing in the Jordan 36, I mean, first off, the Jordan 36 is going to give you a softer, immediate feel. Like the 37 is a little bit more stiff and just takes, you know, some extra time to break in. But both of these shoes do have like those units up in the forefoot that just give you crazy good energy return. Like the 36 was bouncy last year, and so is the 37. The 36 just feels more comfortable in general, I would say. I think the footbed just feels different in a way. Like it's tough to say if it's better or worse. It just feels like a little bit extra on the Jordan 37, a little bit more stiff. It takes some more time to break in, but I wouldn't say it's better or worse. But the collar, at least for the surrounding pieces on the Jordan 36, that's just going to give you a much more comfortable feel. Then using our durometer to check out the midsole, the Jordan 36 was reading at a 38 to like a 40, kind of in that range, and that's going to be right around the average. The 37 is actually going to be a few notches higher. That was reading in at like a 42.5. That is kind of how this model feels. Like it's similar in the cushioning setup. Both shoes are going to be more loaded in the forefoot, at least whenever we're talking about like the balance of it, but overall the comfort's probably going to be better. I'm leaning towards like the Jordan 36 in my opinion. So now looking at the materials and the support, compared to how his line has been as like over the last few years, we definitely have some changes to this section. I'll start off talking about the Jordan 36. These are going to have a lino weave upper paired with a dynamic flexible tongue for breathability. The Jordan 37 feels similar, but it's a little bit different. They have a strong and lightweight upper that Nike actually says is designed to mimic the support given by a taped up ankle. So, I mean, that's a pretty unique idea. And just like the Jordan 36, I mean, the materials are going to be made up of like layers of that lino weave fabric, and which is just like a strong plastic ribbon that is supposed to hold you tight without weighing you down. And that's essentially, you know, what's kind of making up these two shoes. So the one thing that did stick out to me whenever I had this like Jordan 37 model, just like playing in it for the first time, just from the second that I slid these on, was just like I was kind of wondering how the support was going to play. And well, I honestly did not play very well for Grant Williams. He like busted through the shoe like a few weeks ago. So I do have to bring it kind of back down to earth though. Not everyone hooping in this shoe is going to be 6'6", 240 playing against NBA dudes. But still, that's not really the point. I mean, you want to be making a shoe that's going to support whoever is buying and playing in the shoe. So I mean, at least for the Jordan 36, it does feel like there are going to be more layers going on there, which does lead to a more supportive feel. I think Jordan just could have put more pieces on there for the Jordan 37 model. Like there's no rise to the midsole, no overlays or anything like that. And look, I mean, if the whole idea was to create a shoe that was super light, then fine, that's great. But a size 10.5 weighs 430 grams on the Jordan 37, and that's not bad or anything. That's just still 20 grams heavier than the Jordan 36, which was weighing down at 410 grams for the same size. So I don't know, like for this section, Jordan brand just, you know, I feel like they wanted to try something a little bit different, but still not even by a lot. It just didn't really pan out quite as well as it probably could have. So wrapping it up with the traction, honestly, that's been one of the nicer spots, or one of the nicer aspects to Michael Jordan's signature line over the last few years. And the Air Jordan 36 is going to get a multi-directional traction pattern. It's essentially just like a traditional herringbone setup with those arrows going on down there. Then as for the Air Jordan 37, that's going to be more of a random pattern. You can kind of see it's got like those random colors down there too. And this is another spot where, like, you know, Jordan switched it up to a new setup, and the new setup just didn't deliver quite as well. And that's honestly kind of how I felt about the support too. Like, it didn't bother me a ton, but then I did notice it was a little bit worse. Then Grant Williams goes exploding through his shoe, and now it's on my mind a little bit more. But the traction is still going to be good. I'd just say the Jordan 36 feels like it has a little bit more bite on the floor, or maybe at least a little bit more consistently. Like the Jordan 37 still has some pretty nice grip, but you might slide occasionally. And for what it's worth, the Jordan 36 has some deeper grooves on the outsole, and it has a softer feel. So if you're looking for an outdoor model between these two, I'd probably go with the Jordan 36. But to finish off with sizing, honestly, it's going to be pretty much an identical fit between these models. They're both going to run a little long, so you're going to have like a thumb's width left over for the length. And then the Jordan 37 feels like it's a little bit more narrow, as far as like, feels like it fits a little bit more narrow, but neither shoe is going to be wide, so just keep that in mind. So for the final ratings, and starting off with the appearance, I don't really have to waste much time. Like, I haven't really seen a colorway for the Jordan 37 that I even like yet. The Jordan 36 is super clean though, so I'm going to start off going with the Jordan 36. For cushioning, both of these shoes are going to have a front-loaded setup. The Jordan 36 is just like more comfortable all around for your foot though, so it's not just like comfortable underneath it. So I'm going to go with the Jordan 36 again. Looking at the materials, I mean, both of these shoes have the same type of stuff being used, and neither model is cheap or feels cheap, so I'm just going to go with the tie there. But as for the support, that is a spot where the Jordan 37, it just isn't set up for as much success. Like, you're asking a lot out of a thinner upper, and it just doesn't move. Not for me, but whenever it does move, it feels like it's probably just going to rip. And the Jordan 36 just feels like it has more layers from what I've noticed. So I mean, I'm going to go with the Jordan 36 for that section. And to finish off with traction, that's another spot where the Jordan 36 is just a little bit better. And that pretty clearly leads to me going with the Air Jordan 36 as the better shoe to hoop in. And this seems and like kind of feels lopsided. It's not exactly as bad as it looks, but I really do feel like this year's model, just isn't quite as good in almost every way. Like the traction, the cushion, the support, throw in like they're even a little bit heavier too. So I mean, the Jordan 37, it's still a nice shoe to hoop in, but did they get better than the Air Jordan 36? Nah, I don't think so. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. Feel free to throw us a follow or a sub if you like this video. And if you're interested in buying the Air Jordan 36 and you want to support our channel, just click the link here on screen, or we have links for both shoes down below or in our bio. So feel free to check that out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.